Let's go to general adult tests. This time we discuss measuring eye pressure. Your optometrist will routinely measure your internal eye pressure to determine whether you're at risk of developing glaucoma, a condition in which the optic nerve can be damaged by an abnormal buildup of pressure called ocular hypertension. How is pressure measured? Your eye is filled with a clear fluid that washes around inside it, passes through the pupil, and drains out through the angle between the cornea and the iris. The drainage channels can become blocked, leading to a buildup of pressure within the eyeball. Your eye pressure can be measured with a table-mounted or handheld non-contact tonometer placed 1/2 to 3/4 inch, 1 to 2 centimeters in front of your eye. This emits a painless puff of air at the cornea. It will make you blink, but by then the reading has already been taken. The non-contact tonometry, the device measures the speed at which the cornea is flattened with a puff of when a puff of air from the tonometer is directed at it, then gives an estimated reading of the IOP. What do the results indicate? If your IOP is repeatedly raised or is much higher in one eye than the other, a more precise measurement using applanation tonometry will be recommended. You may also be referred to an ophthalmologist for further tests and a more detailed examination before a full diagnosis can be made. Glaucoma can lead to permanent loss of peripheral vision and even total blindness. Applanation tonometry, also known as contact tonometry, is a very precise measurement in which a small tonometer probe is gently placed on the front of the cornea. Before the procedure, anesthetic drops and dye will be put in your eyes. During the test, which takes a few seconds, the optometrist will observe the flattening of the cornea and take an exact reading of the intraocular pressure in each eye. Thank you so much for listening.
Let's now go to identification of patterns. Let's discuss methods. Elements of this identification are found throughout Chinese medical texts, starting from the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine and the discussion on cold-induced diseases. In its present form, this method of identifying patterns was formulated by Cheng Ling in the early Qing dynasty. The identification of patterns according to the eight principles is based on the categories of interior, exterior, hot, cold, full, empty, and yin yang. It is the summarization of all other modes of identification and is applicable in all cases for both interior and exterior diseases. Identification of patterns according to qi, blood, and body fluids. This method of identification of patterns describes the basic disharmonies of qi, blood, and body fluids, such as deficiency, stagnation, and rebellion of qi, deficiency, stasis, heat and loss of blood, and deficiency of fluids, edema, and phlegm. This particular method is very important and constantly used in clinical practice, especially for internal diseases. It is integrated with the method of identification of according to the internal organs and that according to the eight principles. Identification of patterns according to the internal organs. Elements of this process of identification of patterns are found throughout Chinese medical texts from the earliest times, but in its present form, it was formulated during the early Qing dynasty. This method of identification is based on the pathological changes occurring in the internal organs and is the most important of all the various systems for the diagnosis and treatment of internal diseases. The method of identification of patterns according to the internal organs basically consists in the application of the eight principles to specific internal organs. For example, according to the eight principles, condition may be due to full heat, but Applying the process of identification according to the internal organs, we can identify the organ affected by the full heat, for example, liver fire. Thank you for your attention.
We talk about food tie-in with spleen meridian, specifically the spleen 11, T-man basket gate. Spleen 11 is located on the medial aspect of the thigh, 6 proximal to spleen 10, on the line between spleen 10 and spleen 12. The classical Chinese term for squatting with the legs spread, exposing the inner thigh, is Qishu, which refers to the position adopted when winnowing. Mainly used as a local point to free painful swelling of the groin, the inguinal region, and muscular atrophy. Tonifies the spleen, and thereby Qi is directed to the flesh as the spleen masters the flesh. Can be used to encourage the spleen to better transport fluids within the body and remove obstruction when there is painful urination or inability to pass urine. Any gate point needs unimpeded movement to allow for the easy circulation of qi and blood. The alternative name inner market reinforces the idea of this area as a place of exchange and movement. Indications: painful swelling of the groin, painful urination, inability to pass urine. So spleen 11 is very beneficial for painful swelling in the groin area. This point tonifies the spleen and thus the flesh of the body. Its name is thought to refer to the shape the thighs make while squatting during winnowing. Indications and potential point combinations: urinary retention, anuresis, dysuria, and cystitis. We combine spleen 11 with spleen 6, kidney 3, bladder 28, 32, GV3. For inguinal inflammation, pain, non-cancer related inguinal lymphadenopathy, spleen 11 is needled together with the tender inguinal region points like liver 12, stomach 29, 30, spleen 12, spleen 13, kidney 27. Local thigh pain, spleen 11, we check for trigger points in the adductors, the sartorius, and the vastus medialis muscle. Thank you for listening.
Let's now go to poor lung function. The Nanjing authors noticed that when a person had poor lung function, called lung qi deficiency in Chinese medicine, they could suffer any of the following signs and symptoms: shortness of breath, which is worse on exertion, weak cough with clear, thin sputum, poor energy and pale complexion with an even greater energy lag between 3 and 5 p.m., lack of desire to talk, having quiet voice, and tiring quickly when having to talk a lot, frequently suffering colds and flu, and generally being easily affected by external pathogens, tending to feel the cold and having a dislike of being in the wind or cold, a poor sense of smell, blocked nose and sinuses, and pain or discomfort anywhere along the long or large intestine meridian. The face, color, and tone of voice. When a person has a pronounced or chronic lung condition, their complexion will tend to be whitish. When a person is prone to poor lung function, their voice can have a weeping quality as though they were constantly sad or about to cry. The causes of poor lung function. This condition would tend to be present whenever the lungs are affected by an illness, or it could develop when our constitution is weakened through years of working excessively while failing to maintain an appropriate balance in life. Patient example: male, age 56, This patient had poor energy due to the poor function of both his pancreas and lungs, which developed after years of driving himself too hard, which also produced poor kidney function. The condition may also be present due to constitutional factors. In people who are lung dominant, the lung function tends to become poor due to mental factors. The physical function of the lungs is to extract something precious, oxygen, from the air around us. And when this function is used to process our thoughts, this enables us to discern quality in the intangible things around us. People who tend to overuse this faculty become perfectionists. But the more we look for perfection, the less we are able to find it, which creates a constant feeling of disappointment and also weakens the lung function. When this function is used to process our thoughts and it is frustrated by not being able to extract something precious from the intangible things around us, this failure is also duplicated in the physical lung function, which makes it harder for the lungs to extract oxygen from the air around us. Hence, the constant disappointment weakens the lung function. Patient example, mid age 57. This patient was a perfectionist and drove himself hard in the running of his business. Over many years, this caused him to develop a wide range of health issues, eventually affecting all his main organs. Thank you for your attention.
We continue with the diagnosis by four phases. The second phase is called the chi phase. In the chi phase, heat evil has entered the visceral organs. Genuine chi and evil chi are both strong. The symptoms are those of their vigorous struggle and strong yang heat. Because many visceral organs may be affected in the chi phase, illnesses of the chi phase show many patterns of symptoms. There are symptoms that are common to the patterns, however. These include fever, heat aversion rather than cold aversion, a red tongue with yellow coating, rapid pulse. There may be the additional symptoms of restlessness, thirst, and dark urine. If heat gels in the lung, there are additional symptoms like cough, chest pain, expectoration of viscid yellow sputum. If heat disturbs the chest and the diaphragm, we also have dysphoria, uneasiness, and restless fidgeting. If heat is in the lung and the stomach, additional symptoms are sweating, labored breathing, restlessness, much thirst, yellow dried tongue coating, and a rapid pulse. If heat presses on the large intestine, we also have diarrhea, chest stuffiness, and delirium. The third phase is called the nutritive phase. In an illness of the nutritive phase, the heat evil is lodged deep inside and the illness is severe. Since the meridians in the nutritive phase enter directly into the heart and pericardium, the symptoms are characteristically those of injury to nutritive yin and disturbance of the heart and the mind. The main syndrome shows as follows: fever worst at night, mild thirst, agitation with insomnia or mental confusion with delirium, faint skin rashes, a red or crimson tongue, and a thread-like and rapid pulse. The fourth phase is called the blood phase. An illness of the blood phase is at the stage where the heat evil has entered deeply into the blood phase. It is the critical stage of a warm illness. The symptoms show two patterns in addition to those of the nutritive phase. If heat in the blood phase is strong and injures blood vessels, main symptom is eruption of a rash or some form of bleeding. The rash consists mostly of dark or purple macules and papules. The bleeding may be hematemesis, hematochezia, hematuria, epistaxis, or hematoma in a muscle. The tongue is typically crimson. If heat in the blood phase is strong and consumes yin fluids, the main Syndromes reveal fever with flushed face, dry mouth and tongue, tinnitus with deafness, hotness in the five centers, and a depletive and rapid pulse. Thank you for your attention.
Let's now go to integumentary disorders. Let's discuss past medical history. Mr. K has a 14-year history of generalized pruritus, often severe. He reports chronic relapsing, localized, intensely pruritic lesions of the lower leg. He denies systemic diseases. Allergy patch testing was performed and, according to the patient, yielded no valuable results. The patient has tried multiple oral antihistamines. He currently takes none. The patient denies a history of childhood eczema, skin cancers, or precancers. He states that he had varicella as a child. Mr. K reports he is mildly tolerant to sunlight. He denies previous surgeries or blood transfusions. Past medical history of the patient with a skin disease or disorder should be as comprehensive as that for any other medical complaint. Careful history reveals recurrences or flare patterns linked to triggers and modifying factors. Past health conditions or surgeries. Ask about health conditions including diabetes, thyroid, or other endocrine dysfunction, HIV, atopic conditions like allergic asthma, hay fever, and eczema, and thromboembolism. These conditions may provide a clue to skin diagnosis or may modify treatment of the skin. Related to systemic complexes such as the immune response of allergy, asthma, and tissue inflammatory reaction are connected to atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, and viral infections. Has the patient had any surgeries? Previous medical treatments, surgery, and trauma interrupt the natural defense of the skin barrier, providing hospitable ground for infection and inflammation. Skin, hair, or nail conditions. Does the patient have or has the patient had any skin, hair, or nail disorders? Ask about treatment. Does the patient have a history of skin cancer or precancers? A past history of skin cancer or precancerous dermatosis increases the patient's risk for skin cancer. Below provides additional risk factors for skin cancer. Men over age 50 with blue or green eyes, blonde or red hair with history of skin cancer, personal history of skin cancer, continuous exposure to sun, at work or play, light skin that burns freckles or easily gets red, certain types, and larger number of moles. Next is tolerance to sunlight. Ask the patient about her or his tolerance to sunlight and history of sunburns. The Fitzpatrick Sun Sensitivity Skin Typing Scale is used as a tool for classifying skin type to provide uniform assessment of potential risk. One blistering sunburn causes no twofold risk of developing melanoma. Allergy testing. Has the patient been tested for allergies? Here, the tabulation for the Fitzpatrick skin type classification. Type 1 always burns easily and never tans. Type 2 usually burns, tans minimally. Type 3 burns moderately and tans gradually. Type 4 burns minimally and tans redly. Type 5 rarely burns and tans profusely. And type 6 never burns and has a dark pigmented skin. Thank you for your attention.
Let's discuss emergency acupuncture for acute mumps. Acute mumps is recognized in Chinese medicine as a condition that can be treated through various traditional methods. Common symptoms include swelling of the parotid glands, fever, pain in the jaw area. Diagnosis typically involves observing the symptoms and may include tongue and pulse diagnosis. Emergency acupuncture may provide symptomatic relief, but it is not a substitute for medical treatment. Mumps is a viral infection characterized by swelling of the salivary glands, fever, and pain. It can lead to complications such as orchitis or meningitis. Acupuncture may help alleviate pain and reduce inflammation. Common acupuncture points include stomach 6, which may relieve jaw pain, LI4 for pain relief and immune support, and spleen 6 for overall immune function. If symptoms worsen or complications arise, seek immediate medical care. Vaccination is the best prevention against mumps. So use acupuncture just like the acupuncture that we do for sore throat. Use folk therapy. Put gauze into vinegar. Take it out and apply to the painful skin. Repeat several times a day. Burn a loofah until it is black in color. Grind it into powder. Mix with chicken egg white. Smear on the affected skin. Chop loofah leaves and stems to prepare juice. Smear the juice on the affected skin. For tonsil inflammation, mix 60 ml white radish juice, 30 ml sugarcane juice, and some white sugar. Drink it 3 times a day. Maintaining a balanced lifestyle and diet is encouraged to strengthen the immune system. Avoiding exposure to infected individuals is also advised. Thank you for your attention.
Let's now go to goiter, thyroid problems. Let's discuss diagnosis methods. A goiter and its underlying causes is diagnosed using a number of tests, including physical examination, blood tests to check for thyroid hormone levels and particular antibodies, ultrasound scan, fine needle biopsy, and radioactive iodine scan. Types of goiter. Goiters can be either diffuse or multinodular. A multinodular goiter is usually a simple goiter that has progressed to nodularity. Treatment options. Treatment depends on the underlying cause. Goiter caused by iodine deficiency can be helped with the introduction of iodine-rich foods into the diet, such as seafood and iodized salt. Hyperthyroidism is managed with drugs that slow the activity of the thyroid. If these fail to work, part or all of the thyroid gland is surgically removed. Alternatively, some or all of the thyroid hormone producing cells can be destroyed with radioactive iodine treatment. Hypothyroidism is treated by lifelong thyroid hormone replacement therapy. Benign thyroid nodules are shrunk with medications, destroyed with radioactive iodine treatment, or surgically removed depending on type. Cancer of the thyroid is treated by surgical removal of the gland followed by radioactive iodine treatment. Thyroid nodules. These are lumps that grow on the gland. Nodules are classified into two groups, hot or warm. These nodules account for about 15% of cases and can cause hyperthyroidism. The cancer risk is low. Next is cold. These nodules account for about 85% of cases. Around 20% of these are cancerous. Thyroid cancer. Sometimes the thyroid gland is enlarged because of cancer. Anyone can develop thyroid cancer, regardless of age or sex. The incidence rate are very low and the cure rate is very good for well differentiated forms, whereas prognosis is very poor for poorly differentiated forms, the so-called anaplastic thyroid cancer. Some of the risk factors include chronic goiter, family history, female gender, and radiation exposure. High doses of radiation were used during the 1950s to treat disorders of the throat and skin. Thank you for your attention.